Welcome to WP-Tonic episode 139. Today we've got WordPress security expert Robert Abela here. Robert,
Hello.
tell us
Hi.
who you are, what you do.
Okay, so basically, I started. I deal most with web security because before the WordPress career, I was working with several software companies. I worked as a systems administrator, as a project manager, and several similar roles, mostly in companies which developed security software. The last one being a web security scanner. Once I left and I started doing my own thing, basically, I got really interested in WordPress because, of course, WordPress, even today, but even back then, was gaining that popularity. And one thing that really attracted me towards WordPress was this. It's always been like a big target for hackers. So I was just kind of intrigued by why is it so popular. And once I started kind of looking into this thing, I started my own blog because I wanted to kind of document what I was learning about WordPress security. And once I started my own blog, then I got interested in plugins. I moved as a freelance, so I had a bit more time on my own hands. So I also needed, through the blog, I also started kind of providing a service, like cleaning hacked websites, helping companies secure their websites, etc. Mostly WordPress. And with time, I also kind of got interested in the plugin. I needed a sort of logging plugin for me for my work. I looked around. There were already a good number of solutions, but the problem is that most of them were not kind of security plugins. So they were mostly logging in general what users were doing, or if they changed some setting in the SEO plugin, which is not exactly security focused plugins. So that kind of led me also to develop my own plugin. And now I've been owning the website for around 4.5 years. The plugin has been around 14.5 years, and that's what I'm doing mostly. Lately, because the plugin has been quite successful, actually, I'm trying to reduce as much as time as possible from the website. In fact, I'm no longer working on I'm no longer consulting, let's say, or taking new customers. I'm still keeping what I had before, and still kind of writing blog posts just for the sake of research and keeping things going. But mostly I'm focusing on the plugin.
Very good. I also want to introduce my co-host, Jonathan Denwood. And Jonathan, who are you? What do you do?
I'm the founder of WP-Tonic, folks. We're a WordPress maintenance support company that also helps designers, consultants, or anybody that's looking to turn a Photoshop mock-up into an actual WordPress theme. And if you're looking for custom plugin development, we can help you with that as well.
Cool. And I am John Locke, and my website is lockdowndesign.com. And I help, business owners with WooCommerce and local SEO. Something I want to ask you, Robert, why does WordPress have the reputation of being insecure?
WordPress, especially, I mean, like any other project, in fact, a few weeks back, I published this blog post where I looked into how many actual vulnerabilities similar software like Joomla and other similar software had in the past. And if you look at WordPress, of course, it has its fair share of vulnerabilities, but most of the vulnerabilities were from the plugins, not actually. I mean, the core itself had vulnerabilities as well, but to be honest, like any other software, it has vulnerabilities. Even popularly used software like Apache, Nginx, these, mostly widely used web servers, they have their own share of vulnerabilities. The problem, I think, that lies with WordPress. So WordPress, from the aspect of vulnerabilities, it's nothing different from other projects. The problem with WordPress, I think, is that WordPress, the scope of WordPress is to make it easy to build the website. So basically, because it's very easy to use, a lot of people who have no experience at all of what it takes to maintain a website, of how to manage these things, they installed WordPress. They started building their own websites, be it a hobby website or a small business or whatever. So just because it's easy to use, all these people started using WordPress. And because these people do not know what it takes to maintain a website, they were not maintaining the website, and that's why kind of WordPress was being hacked. In fact, if you look at the majority of, especially the widespread hacks of WordPress, where kind of 60,000 websites got hacked in a few days or whatever. Most of the time, it all boils down to weak credentials or exploiting a vulnerability in an outdated plugin or software. So basically, people were just installing WordPress. They were not maintaining it. They were not updating their software. They were not maintaining their plugins. They were using weak credentials. So of course, they became a target. So as such, it's not WordPress itself, because as I said, WordPress, okay, has its own share of vulnerabilities, but any other project had its own share of vulnerabilities. It's more like it allowed people who are not experienced in managing websites to build a website, and then of course they became a target because they didn't have the experience of what it takes to maintain it.
So a lot of it is maintenance, and hackers like look for sites that aren't being maintained.
Yes, in fact, if you notice, especially the widespread hacks, I think, I don't know if it was this year or last year, there was this very popular brute force attack against millions of WordPress websites. What they were doing, it's nothing. Usually, the majority of hacks, they're kind of exploiting the defaults. In fact, what they were doing is they were bots automatically scanning millions of websites, WordPress websites, checking if it's a WordPress website, and checking credentials, default credentials like username admin, password admin, username admin, password, you know. And so yeah, and I mean, thousands and thousands of websites were hacked through this. And if you look at it, that was the only problem. It's like weak credentials. It wasn't WordPress. It wasn't an insecure build or something. It's just weak credentials. I remember, I think it's this year, earlier on this year, there was this huge problem with, I think, the Ref Slider plugin. Again, it's not a problem in Ref Slider. Ref Slider plugin, like any other plugin, had its own share of vulnerabilities as well. So the problem was not Ref Slider not updating. The problem was Ref Slider updated the plugin, but thousands and thousands of people which were using the plugin did not update their own version of the plugin. So when hackers managed to kind of develop automated attacks scripts, scanners that scan thousands of websites, they were looking for vulnerable websites and they were exploiting them. So the main problem again was the user was not updating the plugins. Most of these things they can, especially like exploiting the vulnerability in Ref Slider, it was very easy. So you can just write a simple script and start scanning websites, and it's easy to detect. And once you do that vulnerability, it's easy to hack it, you know, to exploit attacks before they actually happen. Or you can use it as a forensic tool in the unfortunate case your website is hacked, because there's no kind of bulletproof solution for everything. That's why it's important to have logging. That's where logging comes in, because yes, you can have a firewall, you can have a file integrity checker, you can have a malware scanner on your website, and you can have logging, but it doesn't mean that all of them will function as they should when there's a hack, you know. So the more kind of points you have where you can fall to as a safety net in case of a hack or whatever, the better it is, you know. But yes, personally, iThemes Security, Wordfence, and all these different plugins, they're good, of course. They have their own pros and cons, but I personally find them a bit of too bloated for the normal user. As I said, you're going to install one of them, you're going to find all these options like, ooh, okay, from workation. I said, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, well, I've seen some actually small businesses, they make a living out of this. Like they help people kind of, okay, I will fine tune iThemes for you, or I'll fine tune Wordfence for you, or Sucuri, you know. So because normal users, I mean, if I have a small shop, a small flower shop, and I employ 2 people, you know, and I want a small website, the last thing I want is to deal with a security plugin. You know, I just want the website, and I want it to work, and I want to see online orders. That's all I care. I don't want to learn about WordPress security. I want it easy to use, you know.
Yeah, I've got a follow-through question, because obviously WP-Tonic is a maintenance support company, Robert. But what we've found is, yes, you know, they are filled with option screens. You know, we've had some clients that actually have managed to lock themselves out of their own website by installing one of these. And also, we found other problems is they sometimes they do have a tendency to put more than one on, and then it really gets into a jumbled mess. And the third thing is a question, actually, is that the only problem installing one of these, not really studying through their tutorials or going to a website like yours, which is a fantastic resource, actually, folks. Whenever I want to kind of spend a couple hours, I always book a couple hours before I go to your website, because I know I'm going to be on there for a couple hours. But it's a feast about security, folks. So I would highly recommend it. But to get back is you can get a full sense of security by putting one of these all-embracing plugins, because I've had a few clients say to me, well, my site's got hacked, but I had, and I won't name a specific one, but I had this installed, and I still got hacked. Well, it's only a help, isn't it? I don't know if you would agree with that. You still need some knowledge, some understanding, or you need to hire some people that have some understanding. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree. As you said, they are a false sense of security. Nothing against the plugin themselves, because I do have a security plugin as well. So it's, but yes, they do give a false sense of security, because as a plugin developer, you want your plugin to be as compatible with as much website as possible. And to do that, you do not want to kind of push any defaults or any changes by installing it. You want users to enable them and to make sure, like, okay, you're enabling those options, so you know what you're doing. So if something breaks, you know exactly what happened. So many people install these plugins. They don't configure anything, and they just leave them running, and they don't change any defaults. They don't change anything. So yes, installing this plugin or not, you're going to improve your security, but you're not going to improve it as much as you want. So yes, they do give a false sense of security, because unfortunately, because of security and these things, you need to be a bit you need to teach yourself basically to learn about security, or about even the basic concepts before you configure a plugin. And that's why kind of there are these agencies, because at the end of the day, as I said, if you have a small shop, you employ 2 people, you have a small flower shop, the last thing you want is to deal with a security plugin. Having said that, even if you secure your plugin 100%, in security, it's a cat and mouse game. You're never guaranteed 100% that your website is not going to be hacked. If someone guarantees you 100% your website is not going to be hacked, they're lying to you, basically, because you can have the best solutions in the world. There will always be zero-day exploits. There will always be someone who forgot to make a patch or an update or something. And there are so many, when you look at the website, at a normal WordPress website, you have so many entry points, plugins, the theme, the web server itself, the host, and all the libraries that are running on the web server. Because, for example, if you look at Apache, you run a number of libraries in Apache, so it can function. Also, it's not virtual. It's impossible to guarantee that. So yes, plugins, they do give a false sense of security, and unless you configure them, of course. And yes, there is no bulletproof solution. So just because you install a plugin doesn't mean you can go and say, okay, we're done. Especially with security, which is something active. And that's why if you look at security plugins, especially, they do have frequent updates and things like that, because new things are being discovered every day, literally. If you work in security field, you'll notice that every conference you go to, there's always someone who came up with this bright new idea or some weird attack, So yes, it's important to kind of keep up to date, and that's why I think it's important as well. Here's an advert for you as well. That's why I think it's important as well to hire these type of agencies, because, as I said, if you're a shop with 3 people, the last thing you want is to stay hassling with your website. So you have 2 options: or you hire an agency who can help you kind of run your website, or try to run it yourself, and that's where you end up hacked, because WordPress itself gives you this sense of security as well, because it's very easy to use. Oh, here it is. I'm done a website. 5 minutes. You have this quick 5 minutes install. You've done a website, but you don't know what you're going into. So I think even though WordPress is easy to use, non-seasoned users still need a lot of hand-holding to maintain the website.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And yeah. Go on, John. Got another question?
Yeah, and basically, like a follow-up to that, why, again, stress like why it's important to keep an audit log of activity on your website, and are the business owners, the people, the people that own the websites, are they ever surprised by how much activity there actually is on their website that they didn't know about?
Yes, in fact, when people, especially non-security people who install my plugin, the audit log, first of all, they're surprised, like, oh, I didn't know there were this so much failed logins. I didn't know that there were these scans being going on, etc. So yes, people do get surprised. Again, if you don't know how to, how you say it, how to parse the login information and make sense out of it, it can also kind of scare you. For example, it's normal for a website, once you install WordPress, just because of there are so many automated bots running on the internet. Once you install WordPress, it's not, if you check the log files, not just the audit log, even the web server log files, it's normal to see scans going on. From time to time, even in the log files today, I can see requests, someone trying to exploit the ref slider vulnerability. Even though I don't have that plugin, it's just because usually they're just automated scanners scanning the internet to find this vulnerability. So that's something, guys, which is important to mention. Many people think that once you install WordPress, you're a target. It's not true. It's just every once you have an online presence, being WordPress, Joomla, or whatever it is, you're a target. As I said, all these bots running, constantly scanning the websites, it doesn't make a difference if you're WordPress or not. They're just trying to exploit a particular vulnerability. And if your website happens to have to match that criteria and it's vulnerable, they don't care who it is. So the audit log, the advantage of an audit log, yes, you're going to find out exactly what's happening on your website and how much is happening on your website, because, as you said yourself, many people are surprised of what's happening on their website. The disadvantage, I would say, is you shouldn't be alarmed about these things, because these things are normal. They do happen. What's important, of course, there's a difference between if you see that there were, I don't know, 30 failed logins from an IP address over 24 hours, it's not something to panic about. If you see, of course, that there are like hundreds and hundreds of failed logins or hundreds of requests to non-existing pages from the same IP, then yes, most probably you're being targeted, so might as well try to block that IP. But don't try, for example, some mistake that people do, and I see it a lot on Facebook groups and all these WordPress groups, not just security. As soon as people see a failed login, they just start blocking IPs. And block all the IPs in the world, because between anonymous proxies, Tor networks, and all these things, you can and spoofing IPs, etc. It's impossible to really block all the IPs or the offending IPs on the internet. So ideally, especially in this approach, ideally you should take a whitelist approach, not blacklist. So if you want to really restrict access to your login page, if you can, get a fixed IP from your internet provider, and I'll only allow that IP to access the web page. Don't try to block all the other offending IPs, because you'll never finish with that job.
I think that's fantastic advice, and when we're dealing with a site that's of great importance to the client, we strongly advise that, especially if it's WooCommerce or a membership, and it's of great importance to the client. I would totally agree with you, Robert. I would get a fixed IP address and I would go to the white list route rather than the other way, because it doesn't really pan out, and the route what Robert suggested does work to some degree in helping you. The other thing is, I've just had another brain fart, John. I've just lost, because Robert's giving such fantastic information. So can you give another question, John?
Yeah, absolutely. What would be your general advice to business owners who are looking to build a site on WordPress? Should they just go to ThemeForest and grab a $60 theme and throw that up, or how should they go about actually building a site?
When you start building a website, I think I'm not so familiar with the theme market, but relevant if you buy a custom theme from ThemeForest or download it from WordPress.org repository, or someone has done it has built it custom for you. What's very important, themes, there are themes might be vulnerable, but they're not because of the way teams work, they're not as prone for vulnerabilities as plugins. So that's one point important. So if you have the time, if you have the resources, get the team reviewed by someone. Um, but it's not. I'm not saying it's not important, but it's more of a secondary thing. One thing I would really take care of when installing a WordPress, first of all, take care of the defaults. You know, the usual admin. Some people say changing the tables prefix works. Some people know that's more security by obscurity. But I mean, if you have the chance, do it. Why not? You know. But take care of the defaults. What's important to me as well is don't install every plugin you see. I've logged into websites like they have, I don't know, 40, 50 plugins, 100 plugins, and they're only using 3 of them. You know, even if plugins are disabled, if there's a vulnerability, there is still vulnerable to it, because a plugin does not need to be running, because the code is still running on your server. The code is still on your server, and someone can still request that particular vulnerable PHP file from your plugin. So even though it's disabled by WordPress, that file is still accessible. So install. I would recommend make a staging website if possible. I mean, nowadays you don't need a lot of resources. You can install XAMPP or WAMP on your local computer. You know, just run a website locally within 5 or 10 minutes. You don't need a lot of resources. Before installing a plugin, what I always do is first I install it on a staging website, which could be also on my normal computer. See if you need it or not, and if you need it, then install it. From where should you install your plugins? Again, Team Forest or these third party, let's say, markets or WordPress repository. It depends. Personally, I've never needed to buy a plugin from Team Forest or their these type of markets. But if you do, I think what's important, even in the WordPress repository, check how often is the plugin updated, check the ratings, check the support forums. You know, I mean, we've seen plugins which had vulnerabilities and they were fixed. I mean, it's okay. I mean, many people say, "Oh, that had 2-3 vulnerabilities, so I'm not going to use it." To be honest, if a plugin has vulnerabilities, if they are fixed on time, it's okay. If it has vulnerabilities, it means that people are interested in it, people have tested it, people have found them, and it has been fixed. As long as the developer is responsive and does fix the vulnerabilities on time, that's fine. It's not a problem. Actually, the more vulnerabilities there are that are discovered, the more secure the software will be in the long run. You know, so don't look at what's important is how the developer responds to those vulnerabilities. We've also seen plugins where they failed to fix vulnerabilities, and in fact, some of them have been taken offline, have been taken off the repository. So even when installing plugins, even when installing themes, it's very important to do some homework. Don't install everything. Just read the support forums, just check the ratings, and check about the history of the plugin or the theme. And only install what you really need. So use a staging website, install everything there, experiment there, and once you know you're sure you need that plugin or not, then you can install it on your live website. And the most important is, yes, you can install a security plugin, but the most important is take care of those defaults. If, in all fairness, if you, as a security principle, if you use strong usernames and passwords, if you can use two-factor authentication, okay. But if you use strong username and password, and if you keep your software up to date, you're already ahead of the game. You know, I mean, of course, yes. As the website grows more complex and more people are logging in and all these things, yes, you have to kind of beef up the security aspect of it. But by following those 2 main principles, you're already like way ahead of everyone. You know.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. The actual thing I was going to ask you has come back in my mind. It's security is also more about your website, really. I'll just give you. It's only happened once, but it was about 6 months ago, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
We had this client, and their site got hacked, and it got hacked. I'll be honest, it got hacked under our management, and we had backups. We delved into it. You have a kind of a process of hardening, because I don't know if you would agree with this statement. Convenience and security don't really go. The more you harden something, the more it can be less convenient. But we harden. They got hacked again, and then we really hardened, and they got hacked again, and we were pulling our hair out, Robert. You know, what is the hell going on here? And then I thought, let's check. I started asking the client questions. What machine do you use? Well, I use Windows 7. Do you run it in you don't run it in administration mode, do you? Yes, we do. I run it. Their computer had been hacked, and I personally remotely went into their desktop computer, and I found a keylogger had been installed, and they had more problems than their website being hacked. All their passwords had been their email, their banking, and we had to help them with that. So keep that. It doesn't happen very often, but at least we found out it wasn't down to us, folks, and we helped the client resolve that problem. So it's not always the website. You've got to keep other things in mind as well. Would you agree, Robert?
Yes, in fact, something that John mentioned before, and now that you're mentioning it, it came to my mind, because John was asking before, like, what other aspects of the website, or what other pieces of what makes up the website should take for. Yes, the personal computer is very important as well. As you said, I've seen many cases where it's not just about Windows or remote. I mean, that's important, but again, Windows release patches, Linux release patches, Ubuntu, all these OS. It's very important. Every software you use, it's very important to keep it up to date. From the security point of view, this is not WordPress, by the way. It's just security in general. Most of the problems that happen, it's about unpatched software. I mean, even if you look, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this Panama Papers international issue. It's not sure yet exactly the exact details what happened were never released, but from some documentation I've read, which is quite a reliable source, I would say, the issue was because the server where the company's website was hosted, and where the documents were hosted as well, was running some old version of some framework, you know. So I remember when I was in my first stint of my career as a systems administrator, I started from the lowest level of the ladder of my career, and we had a server hack. And this hack was, we were using a particular FTP server on our web servers, and yes, it was an old version, and it had some exploits. So basically, people were scanning, they found this exploit, and they hacked the FTP server and managed to exploit the privilege escalation vulnerability, and they hacked into the whole server. So the web server, the website, your personal computer, it's very important to one of the most basic principles: keep your software up to date. That's very important. There's a reason why there are updates. The updates are there to fix security issues, and also to have more features, and also to have more stable software. I mean, if you look at the updates, usually I speak about myself, about my plugin, but even other plugins, if you notice that the changelog, it's always the same. We have some new features, we have product improvements in terms of not just features, in terms even of performance, whatever. And usually the longest list in every update is the bug fixes. It's normal. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it means that the product is improving, you know? I mean, if you don't see bug fixes, if you don't see bug fixes, there's something wrong with the product, because from 16 years of experience working in IT, not just security, IT in general, it's impossible to have a perfect software, you know? So it's important. That's why I said before, when you're going to install a plugin or whatever, look at the changelog, look at the history. I mean, you would see how responsive developers are, how frequently the product is updated, if it's being kept updated. Maybe we've seen plugins where they received an update once a year. Is it good? Was there a need? Yes or no? It's important to do a bit of homework before installing every piece of software or running every piece of software.
That's great.
And not just plugins, by the way, everything. If you're using an FTP client, if you're using an SSH client, if you're using the OS of your computer, everything.
Oh, that's great, Robert. So I think we better end the podcast part of the show, folks. What do you reckon, John?
Yeah, I think we're ready to end the regular podcast portion and go into the bonus content, which you can find on the WP-Tonic website. Before I let everybody let us know where they can find them, I just want to remind you, if you're getting value from the WP-Tonic podcast, be sure to go to iTunes and give us a rating. 5 stars would be preferable. That helps other people find this podcast, or rate us on your podcast player of choice. But definitely go and subscribe and give us a rating. And with that, I'm gonna let everybody let us know where to find them. Robert, how do we find you?
I have two websites. I have WP-Security.com, which was my first website, basically, where I still post. I don't post as often as I wish, but I do post from time to time security kind of tutorials, tips, and things like that. But I also have my plugin website. The plugin can be found on the repository as well, on the WordPress.org repository, which is WP Security Audit Log, and the plugins website is WP-SecurityAuditLog.com. On both websites, there are contact forms. My email is robert@wpysecurity.com, but if you use the contact forms, I reply. We're still a very small team, so I am still the one which sees all the emails. So if you get in touch with those forms, I will get back to you. It won't get lost somewhere in the hierarchy of the company, because we're a very small team.
No, very, very good. Jonathan, how do we get a hold of you?
The two main ways you want to get hold of me, folks, is email at jonathan@wp-tonic.com. We're a small team as well, and I do check my email periodically during the day, not all the time because I won't get any work done. And Twitter at Jonathan Denwood. I normally log in a bit like the email a couple of times, and I do respond to Twitter as well. So they're the two main ways, John.
Very good. And you can find me at my website, which is lockdowndesign.com. And you can also follow me on Twitter, lockdown_. For WP-Tonic, this is John, and signing off. Be sure to catch us on the WP-Tonic website for the bonus content.
And get your weekly WP Merson from WP-Tonic. What do you reckon, John?
Get your dose.
Get your dose. See you later, folks.
See you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
That's great.
So okay.
On to the bonus.
Yeah. On to the bonus content. Yeah, we usually record this for YouTube, and then we embed it on the site. And just
so, Robert, I'm sorry to cut you off, John. I apologise.
Oh, go ahead.
Robert, I just want to put this statement. When you were speaking, it was fantastic content and advice you were providing, Robert. Do you think that WordPress has found itself in a slightly unfortunate space? Because let's say, apart from Joomla, let's go with Drupal or Expression Engine. The type of websites that Drupal or Expression Engine are going to be put on, they're going to be educational or larger organizational websites where they're probably on site are going to have a IT professional. And then you've got the kind of fully hosted solutions like Shopify, where you got WordPress, like what you said, the simplicity of installing it. It's right in that middle ground where you've got a lot of users that don't really have a lot of technical knowledge. And I feel that's one of the reasons why in some circles it's got a reputation not being secure. What do you think of that statement? Do you think it's justified?
Yes, I mean, the reason why WordPress got this label as insecure is the same reason why WordPress is easy to use. I mean, it's easy to use. Everyone's trying to use it, but not everyone has got the knowledge to maintain a website. It's something similar to driving, basically. I mean, a lot of people can drive a car, but not everyone can drive a fast car, you know? So it takes a bit more technical knowledge. And with websites, it's roughly the same. I mean, yes, you can do a website. Can you really manage a website, even if it doesn't have traffic? Can you really manage a website in the long run? Most probably, unfortunately, if you don't have experience, it won't. I mean, the thing is this: I've been working for 16, 17 years now in IT in general, mostly in systems administration, security, websites, not just WordPress, but websites in general. I mean, even after 16 years, as I said before, you look at new attacks, you look at new idea, and there's every day you're learning something new, you know. So it's never enough, and it's very difficult for people like me who dedicate their time. These things are our jobs. It's very difficult for me to keep up with everything, let alone someone who's got a small shop somewhere and just wants a website to sell something. In that case, these people just want an easy-to-use solution to deliver their message. They don't want to be bothered with security or whatever, you know. So yes, is WordPress in an unfortunate position? Things can be better, like everything else, to be honest. Even with my plugin, things can be better. But I think unless we're going to change this perspective that, listen, okay, everyone can build a website with WordPress, this situation, this concept of WordPress will remain.
Yeah, I actually think if you're just looking for a 6-page, there probably might be better solutions than WordPress. But if you're into WooCommerce membership, you need something that's got flexibility, that you have full control. I would still say that WordPress is a fantastic solution, but you've got to use the right tool for the right situation, haven't you?
Correct. I mean, if you need, I lately I had a friend, in fact, who asked me about something. He's a mechanic in a garage, and he wanted a website. Static, as you said, 6 pages website, static website, just a contact form. Don't go for WordPress in such case. It's much easier, it's much safer from a security point of view to have a designer design some pages for you, do them as static content, HTML pages, and then use a small component for the form, or even include some form from Google Apps or whatever. You know, it's much easier, it's much safer, and it's much less of a headache. Static HTML, especially if you're using a hosting solution, as in if you don't have a dedicated server, you just have some hosting space, you don't have anything to worry about. Some HTML pages, some component from Google, whatever, and you're done. You know, don't use WordPress. Always use the right tool. But yes, if you're looking into membership, WooCommerce, and all these things, then of course you have to use something like WordPress.
And I think actually that's great advice, because I think you still then have full ownership. You're not relying, let's say, something like, not having a go at them, folks, something like Wix, but you're totally relying on a hosted platform and a company where, if you've just done what Robert's just said, 6 pages, static HTML, get a local designer, developer, and it'll be nice and secure, totally under your control. And if you ever need, there's no problems of getting data out. It's all under your control, and all you have to worry about is renewing your domain and your hosting package once a year, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And it also it also depends. Another unfortunate case, which I forgot to mention before, is with WordPress, is just because it's open source, people expect that everything is available for free. Free doesn't pay for my pizza and for my roof, so for no one's. So basically, people kind of tend. I noticed that when people work on some systems and you ask them for some money, they say, okay, it's fine. But when they work with WordPress and you ask them for some money, it's like, sorry, WordPress is free. It's like, no, I mean, and it also depends how valuable the website is for you. I mean, if you have, as I said, if you're a mechanic, you have 6 static pages and a contact form, that's fine. You don't need to invest a lot of money. But if you have an online business, I was quite surprised actually. I've seen a website selling some soft toys, and they actually just a local market, and they actually generate millions a year. I mean, if you're generating millions a year, invest in your website. If that's kind of your window to the world, that's your shop to the world, that's generating for you millions of websites, don't try to maintain it yourself. It's a big website, it's a heavy website. Pay someone, invest some money back into the website, and make sure it will remain online. As I said before, you're not guaranteed that it will not be hacked, but if by having someone hand-holding you and someone professional managing your website, the chances of it being hacked, or the chances of a quick recovery should something goes wrong, you'll be in a better position, basically. So yes, if the website is really important for your business, it's your livelihood, invest in it. Don't just expect, because WordPress is free, don't expect to not pay for anything. Pay for it, pay for services. First of all, you'll be helping businesses, and secondly, yes, you're ensuring peace of mind, and you're ensuring that your website will remain up and running.
Yeah, I think it's not only e-commerce membership. If you've got a site in a specific industry and you're investing a lot of money in articles, in video, in general content marketing, and you've got a team. Imagine losing all that content, folks, all that investment in time and writing hours and video hours. That would be a nightmare. So it really is the kind of investment. Another question, Robert, what are some of the kind of resources that you think are quite good around security, apart from your own websites, that you say that people might be, if they want to learn a bit more about security in general, what are some of the resources that you would recommend?
I have another website I didn't mention before. It's WP-securitybloggers.com. It's basically it's an aggregate of
Yeah, I've been there. I forgot to mention it. I apologize.
Yeah, that's okay. The most, even I forget about it, to be honest. It's a passive website, so it's an aggregate of let's say a number of websites which publish articles or content or whatever on WordPress security. So by subscribing to this website, to the newsletter, you will basically are receiving every update, every most popular update that there is on WordPress security. If I had to choose myself, which ones? If you look at the three major players, I'm talking about in terms of plugin and services, I'm talking about Sucuri, iThemes, and Wordfence. All of them have their own share of good content on their blog. Some of them, especially Sucuri and Wordfence, some blog posts can be a bit technical for the normal user, but the rest of the content is quite good. I would say they do a very good job there. I mean, there are some other websites, to be honest, but most the other ones are kind of smaller websites, and it's not about being small, and usually they focus on writing more technical content. So unless you're really kind of into security or into these things, you don't really need to be bothered about. But I think by subscribing to wpsecuritybloggers.com, you receive, we have two options. You can subscribe to the weekly newsletter or to the daily newsletter, whichever you subscribe to. If you subscribe to the weekly, for example, every week you receive an email with a list of all the blog posts that we've been posting. You just see the list, go through it, something that interests you, click on it, and you will read it. That's it. So I personally find it very easy. I mean,
yeah, it's great. Now I've got a really serious question here, Robert. You know, it's a deep question. Why don't you like SEO people on your post? You got this. It was cruel, Robert. You were being cruel, Robert. It was quite funny. I read it and I thought, what's this about, Robert?
No, it's actually it's not that I don't like SEO people. I actually believe in SEO, and I do believe that SEO is a very important factor of success, whether it's a technical product, whether it's a plugin, whether it's a flower shop. So SEO is good. The problem is not SEO. The problem is just an experiment. I really like to, when I have time, by the way, I really like to kind of follow up with spammers or these kind of people just to get an idea. I mean, once I followed up, I have this record somewhere. I would like to publish it. Once I followed up the spam email, when they send you an email like someone died in somewhere in Africa and you inherited these $4 million, whatever. And it's when you start studying these, they're actually quite complex, and that's the idea behind it. It's like, I wish I had time to follow up with these people, because you learn a lot about how these things work. I mean, once I followed up one email of these inheritance emails, and they do actually send you the whole the death certificate, a picture of that person who died, and they do actually send you official, within inverted commas, documentation on all these things. So it's by chasing, by following up with these people, you actually learn why people are falling for these. So, for example, I had a friend of mine who used to work for I forgot what's the name of the company, but these type of companies where you kind of send money here and then they have an office somewhere else and they get the money from there. Who was telling me, like, you see all these people going there, okay, I would like to transfer $10,000. And this guy was telling me, like, this is a spam, it won't happen. Because usually these scams, for example, the inheritance ones, that's how they work. They tell you, okay, you inherited $4 million, but first you have to send $10,000,
As you do.
And it's impressive how many people send. And so I was always kind of curious why people fall for these tricks. I don't fall for these tricks because I work in this industry. So for me, it's kind of obvious that I didn't inherit $4 million. But it's impressive how And some of them actually are very good. I mean, nowadays, you don't see the typical spam. Before, spam was like you receive a canned email, basically, a canned response, you know? Nowadays, there are actually people behind these emails, you know? And as soon as you reply, someone will personally get in touch with you and try to keep this conversation with
on
you,
a serious note, it was just on a serious note, there was some cases. I'm not solely think it's in California. They were based in, and I'm not having a go at India either, folks.
Yeah, I know.
But they were this particular outfit were based in India, and they were ringing up people in America, and they were pretending they were internal revenue officers, and they were asking for them to kind of send them large sums of money in back taxes through a wireless, a wire transfer, as the Internal Revenue Service would. But they were actually just the words internal revenue officer just installed fear, and people were just sending them money that day. And they recorded some of the phone calls and people, but they were mostly older people, other people.
Yes.
It was terrible, really. And they're like putting the fear of God into these people. So, yeah.
And to be honest, what's even more scary is like when you look at the statistics at the conversion rate of spam emails, for example. They're actually higher than a normal campaign. A normal campaign, if you make adverts on Google AdWords, whatever, if you get to 2% conversion, it's true. If you get a 2% conversion, that's good to 3%. If you look at spam emails, they have a conversion rate of more than 5% sometimes, which is bloody good. And later I was reading some statistics. The whole underground black hat, let's say, the whole underground spam, whatever, industry on the internet, by 2020 it will be more worth and more dangerous than the drug network around the world, than the physical drug network. So I mean, these things are for real, you know. I mean, I've read cases where someone tries to physically track a spamming network, basically. He's a journalist, and his children got kidnapped, you know. These things happen for real, you know. I mean, they don't happen every day to everyone, but it is a serious business, you know. It's a serious thing.
Yeah, I just thought I would ask you about your post about the SEO. I just couldn't resist it, Robert. You got an ending question, John?
Yeah, and I just want to say that I did read that correspondence, the SEO, where, and for people who don't know, Robert had a correspondence with a person that said, we can improve your SEO, and he had like an 80 email chain. It's fascinating reading. It's absolutely fascinating. I found myself sitting there reading it going, wow, I've been reading this for like half an hour. Long-form content does work.
That's what happened to me as well, John, and I didn't, but there we go.
I mean, it took me hours to copy it from an email to a post format, you know, so.
Yeah, but yeah, final question, and we'll respect your time and let you get on with your day. But if you were in charge of the WordPress project, if you were like the lead developer or whatever, what changes would you make to the WordPress core to make it more secure than what it's doing now?
That's a good question. Because to be honest, I personally think the last year and a half they already did a lot, because passwords, finally you are kind of enforced to use strong passwords. Updates, especially minor updates, are being enforced as well. And even the default username, they are kind of pushing you to change it during installation. So that's a good thing. But something, I don't know what else. I honestly don't know. This is a very good question, and I was never asked this question. Because the basics, I mean, as I said, the basics is using strong username and password and keeping your software up to date. And the basics have been addressed, and have been addressed really well, in my opinion. So I honestly don't know what at the moment, roughly, I don't know what I would do. No.
Okay.
Well, John asked the original questions. You never get originality from me, Robert. You get questions about SEO articles. No, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Robert. We're gonna stay on for a few minutes, but we're just gonna close down the actual public side of this video. What do you say, John?
Yeah, thanks for everyone for tuning in. I hope you learned a lot about security. Be sure to tune in this Saturday. We're going to continue to talk about security with our WordPress panel. Remember, Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're there, and you can go to WP-Tonic.com/blab, and there's a forum there where you can type in questions, and we'll track those. So if you have questions for the panel, just type in there, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week, folks.
See you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.